Hello and welcome to the Daily Bible Podcast. My name is William Hemsworth. Thank you for joining me for today's show. Today we continue on in Matthew chapter 12, and we're going to look at verses 7 and 8. So we're going to look at Matthew chapter 12, verses 7 and 8, which say, "And if you had known what this means, I desire mercy and not sacrifice, you would not have condemned the guiltless. For the Son of Man is Lord over the Sabbath." So here Jesus is concluding his discourse with the Pharisees after he and his disciples plucked grain on the Sabbath because they were hungry. Earlier in this discourse, Jesus differentiated between plucking because one is hungry and harvesting, which is to harvest for profit. Jesus was pointing out the differences with the Pharisees, comparing what he and his disciples were doing to King David and his soldiers earlier on in the book of 1 Samuel. And so these verses here conclude it. And here in verse 7, Jesus quotes Hosea chapter 6, verse 6. And earlier in Matthew chapter 9, Jesus also challenged the Pharisees to study and contemplate Hosea's words. And this kind of completes his apologetic on this, if you will. So he quotes Hosea chapter 6, verse 6 again, challenging them once again to understand the proper meaning of that text. And so basically Jesus is challenging the Pharisees to understand that mercy is more important than the regulations of the temple. And that those temple laws take precedence over the Sabbath. And because of that, mercy is more important than the Sabbath. And in verse 8 we read Jesus saying, "For the Son of Man is Lord over the Sabbath." This is a statement of divinity. And to the Pharisees this was heresy, this was blasphemy. This was a statement of divinity. Here Jesus is basically saying, I created the Sabbath. Okay, they didn't realize that the Pharisees didn't realize that Jesus created the Sabbath. You see, guys, the Creator is always greater than the creation. That's why Jesus had the authority to overrule those regulations and the traditions of the Pharisees. Well, I hope the background on this passage has been helpful. Thank you again for joining me on the Daily Bible Podcast. I hope everyone has a great day. God bless you all, and thank you so much for listening. God bless you.